It's River to River from IPR News. I'm Ben Kiefer. It's been the hottest, most humid July Iowa's ever measured. Now, I know that's not a news flash, but most of us can retreat to air conditioning. However, more than 1,000 Iowa prisoners and correctional officers have nowhere to go. At Anamosa State Penitentiary, that's a structure, imposing structure, if you've ever seen it, built out of limestone in the 1800s. One wing has air conditioning. The rest of it, housing roughly 1,200 men, does not. Let's go to Mount Pleasant. Same story for that structure, for over 1,000 more of the men incarcerated there. And for 15 years, the Iowa Department of Corrections has asked the legislature for money to fix this. 15 years, lawmakers have said no. It's been a long time, at least 15 years, I understand. But this year, there's a new twist to this story. The department has been quietly selling off prison farmland and has nearly $8 million sitting unspent. It's money that some people close to this issue think should be going toward cooling those cells right now. Erin Jordan has spent months tracking this very specific question. The Iowa Department of Corrections says it doesn't have the money for air conditioning at Anamosa and Mount Pleasant. So where did the $8 million from selling off prison farmland actually go? Erin is a freelance journalist, associate professor of practice at the University of Iowa School of Journalism and Mass Communication. She broke this story for Iowa Capital Dispatch and joins me now in our Iowa City studio. Nice to see you, Erin.
Yeah, great to be here, Ben.
You've reported on this prison system in our state for years. Take us into the prison in a mindset here. What does it actually look like in Anamosa, Mount Pleasant, on a week like we had, a few weeks ago? Record dew points, heat indices over 100.
Yeah, what I have heard, I have not been there myself for a visit, during these time periods. It's been a number of years since I've been into Anamosa. But from what we've heard from folks who have been incarcerated in those facilities is that it's, kind of stifling heat. The humidity is such that it gathers on the stone walls and drips down onto the floor.
Condensation, yeah. Puddles on the floor, actually.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it can exacerbate health conditions. If you have problems breathing, you have heart ailments. I mean, if you're like me, Ben, anytime I try to go out and do something on a 90-degree day, it's so much harder. It takes a toll on the body. And a lot of these incarcerated folks have underlying health conditions and have had those for years. And so these really hot days can be desperately hard for them.
Okay, you found that the Department of Corrections has sold off more than half of its prison farmland. I'm looking at about $18 million worth, if that's correct, $7.7 million sitting unspent right now. Walk us through where that money's gone so far and why AC, and this is not just offenders, inmates suffering from a lack of AC. Of course, they have corrections officers amongst them as well.
Right. Yeah. I think, the correctional officers probably have a lot of their time of the day is inside offices that would have air conditioning, but anytime they're in with the population, they would be dealing with that heat as well. But with the farmland sales, in 2023, a consultant recommended the Department of Corrections sell off this farmland. So they were kind of directed to do that and to use the income from that to take care of these infrastructure needs that were not being funded by the legislature. And so they've been doing that. The portion of that $18 million that's been spent so far has been spent to build or have a new kitchen at the Clarinda prison facility and to kind of take that facility behind the bars so there's not as many security issues. They've built offices for the 5th and 4th judicial districts. So that's how they've spent the money so far. But like you said, just under $8 million left that could potentially be spent on air conditioning.
What has the Iowa Department of Corrections, the leadership there, the director and so forth, said about how that money has been spent, and any comment on why AC is not on that list?
They've been pretty quiet about how they are considering how to spend that remainder of the money. When asked how they prioritize the spending, they've said it's up to the discretion of the director, Beth Skinner, and some other folks in her management team to decide the highest priority infrastructure needs. which seems to imply that so far AC hasn't reached that level. But at the July Board of Corrections meeting, they still were not saying, yes, here's how we're spending that remainder. So maybe they're still considering it.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to lawmakers. Let me quote from your story. Representative Jacob Bossman chairs the committee that would fund this. Told you the comfort of, quote, convicted criminals won't take priority over public safety spending. So that is the framing that you're hearing from lawmakers. Does that hold up, given who's actually inside these buildings and the consequences? We'll talk about those later, too.
Yeah, I think that sentiment is not an uncommon thought. A lot of folks might think, well, these prisoners, they did something to get themselves into prison, and we shouldn't prioritize their comfort over other things. But even from a very pragmatic perspective, if the health conditions of offenders are worsened, we as Iowans pay for their health care. Also, if fights break out when people are not getting sleep because of the heat and other issues, those sort of violent conditions, they affect our correctional officers, and they also affect the morale of everyone who's incarcerated there.
Erin Jordan with us, the first part of the program. She'll be with us for several minutes more. Freelance journalist, associate professor of practice at the University of Iowa School of Journalism and Mass Communication, breaking this story for Iowa Capital Dispatch about the sweltering conditions in two of Iowa's oldest prisons. Let's bring into this conversation Trent Keller, chair of the Iowa Board of Corrections. This is the body that advises the department on exactly these kinds of decisions. Trent, welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me today, Ben. I appreciate being on.
And perhaps at the start, clarify what your role is here, because you do not... you can advise, but you do not say, do this, do that, right? What is your role at the Iowa Board of Corrections?
At this present time, the Board of Corrections are just an advisory board. We don't have the authority to say, do this or do that anymore. But what we do is we advise, and we give our input and do our best to try to advise to the department leaders to make wise decisions when it comes to the staff and the health of the staff and inmates, and not being partial at all towards the wise decisions.
I think you've been on the line while Erin Jordan has been describing her reporting and the situation there. Tell us, do you agree with that that description? And perhaps you can add what you have personally seen or heard on your board visits to Anamosa or Mount Pleasant.
Well, at this present time, what Erin Jordan was speaking on, and I'm in total agreement with her. We know that there's been over 3,446 farmland acres that's been sold, and I believe they sold for majority of that. And like you said, they got a little less than $8 million remaining unspent. Governor Reynolds had advocated, or tried to request for $8.1 million to go towards air conditioning at Anamosa and Mount Pleasant correctional facilities. And the legislation took and voted it down. I believe the Republican House, the House Republican leaders declined that the AC appropriations, stating that the inmates' comfort doesn't outweigh broader public safety and infrastructure priorities. And so it just kind of make me think, like, do these legislators believe that these are human beings? Do they believe that the staff deserve the proper environment to work in? And so I'm in agreement with Erin Jordan on her perspective. I believe that the funds are there, and it's up to the Department of Correction leadership to make a decision on if they want to use the remaining funds. I believe they have the right to use those funds towards air conditioning.
Mm-hmm. I understand, Trent, that you've personally asked whether that farmland money could go toward AC. and we're told those funds were allocated elsewhere. Can you give us a sense, we've got a break in a couple minutes, of what those conversations were like? Because you've laid out the arguments that you're hearing against using it for AC. They're just higher priorities, and, the comfort of these inmates is not at the top of our list. What are those conversations? What have they been like?
It's been very difficult conversations. I believe that the department's been seeking it, like you said, for 15 years, from seeking to get some assistance with the air conditioning. Now that there's funds available, it's just been difficult. Mostly every meeting that we've had over the last year, the board members have been asking, even before when we had Larry, one of the board members is not on anymore, was constantly asking about air conditioning and as a priority. And Steve Dix has explained that some of the funds are not allocated, can't go towards other entities, but it has to go towards technology. And so it's kind of frustrating to hear that there's people that's incarcerated and people that's wanting to work for the Department of Correction who have to work in environments that is really truly not safe when it comes to the heat index and all everything that's going on within the system. Because I know that with the temperatures rising over this last month with 90-degree weather, it can make people irritable. It can make people want to lash out, and also can cause issues with health and asthma and bronchitis and so on. So I believe that the board is advising as much as possible. All 6 members are advising, and I believe Dr. Skinner is reaching out and trying to do her best to see if she can get the assistance from the legislators. And so Governor Reynolds did her part, and so we're going to see what happens with the remaining of that farmland sales money.
Okay, please stay with us. Trent Keller, chair of the Iowa Board of Corrections, as we continue to discuss this issue with Erin Jordan, and we'll bring in another guest as well. We're talking about the hottest and most humid July on record. We just had 1,000 prisoners, correctional officers at 2 of the state's oldest prisons, Anamosa and Mount Pleasant, living through it without air conditioning. Does that make sense? We'll talk about some of the other reasons that have just been mentioned that we can discuss further when we continue. It's River to River from IPR News. So good to have you on board on this edition of River to River from IPR News. I'm Ben Kiefer, talking this portion of the program about a lack of air conditioning at 2 of Iowa's oldest prisons, Mount Pleasant and Anamosa, and the nearly $8 million unspent in prison farmland money that some think should go toward fixing that. And Erin Jordan with me, freelance journalist, also on the faculty of the University of Iowa School of Journalism and Mass Communication. Trent Keller, chair of the Iowa Board of Corrections. Trent, let me ask you this. As pointed out earlier, the Board of Corrections is advisory. You can't force a budget decision. Do you have an actual lever that you can use on lawmakers? Is anything about this year feel different?
This year, I believe I go in with Greg Baker and some of the guys from Family Leaders, and I pray with the legislators. So I believe that Kim Reynolds, being her last year in office here in Iowa, she approved for the $8.1 million towards the air conditioning. So I see some things working in the favor of getting the air conditioning. I just think that overall, the lawmakers, the House Republicans, and everyone need to work together and just decide that these are human beings. And also, these are taxpayers and employees of the state. And so I believe that they have to be thoughtful of how would you like to feel living in a place that's 97 or 100 degrees index or so in a moldy area, this with condensation and everything dripping and water on the floors and everything else when you're trying to stay in a comfortable situation. I don't think that we're condoning any saying that I condone people breaking laws and having misbehaving lawfully, but they still deserve to be in a place that's air conditioned and for rehabilitation can have a successful process.
Trent, tell me about this, because we talked the age of these structures, going back to the 1800s too, out of limestone. These are thick, momentous buildings that really are heat banks when we have these hot weeks, right? So it's not like maybe our wooden houses where we might have an all-house fan that gets rid of it. Those turn into kind of baking bricks that make up these facilities. Is that going too far?
No, that's not going too far. That's right on point, especially with Anamosa, because it's like a furnace. And during one of our board meetings, one of the ex-prisoners had stated that from maybe the beginning of summer until November, it's like a baking inside of a furnace or some type of brick oven. And so those bricks get so hot that it takes so long to cool off. It's totally different from a stick-built house. And so I believe that that's something that the legislators and the House Republicans and the lawmakers need to really think about. It's not the same situation as your local home where you can put a box fan in a window. These guys don't get to open their windows up and they're in cells and the staff have a fully equipped with their uniforms and going up tiers of stairs off and on and doing checks in that environment. And so they're having some issues maybe also.
Trent Keller, I want to have Erin Jordan jump in. She's with me in the studio. Erin.
I was just thinking, based on what Trent said, is if the structure of Anamosa is part of what is keeping the Department of Corrections from doing the air conditioning, because I can imagine it doesn't have the same ductwork as a normal home, all sorts of things. But, it's hard because the Department of Corrections leadership isn't talking as much about this. I found that they did not want to be interviewed by me from my story. And if, we could get a chance to really talk about those things that are preventing this decision maybe from happening, it would be nice.
Before we say goodbye to you, Trent, I wanted to mention House File 2542, the better known as the Three Strikes Law, projected to grow Iowa's prison population by 50%, cost nearly $2 billion in new capacity we will need in our state. And remember, our prisons are already overpopulated. Are you worried, Trent, about that unspent farmland money ending up to fund new prisons instead of fixing the ones we already have?
I think it's the priority to take the funds and not put it towards those new prisons. We need to take care of what needs to be taken care of already instead of allocating those funds towards I think it's $9.7 billion that they're going to use to build the 3 new prisons and expand the 2 others. I believe that those prisons probably already have air conditions in their plans and in their in the workup. So I really think that the money that's remaining, if possible, should go strictly towards air conditioning at Mount Pleasant and Anamosa. I believe that we take care of what we have already and then go into the future building on. And I know that they said that the population of inmates should go up 50% by 2030. And so that's just a short period of time. That's 3 years or 3 or so years from now. And so why not make sure that your staff members and make sure that the inmates are safe and healthy and able to be rehabilitated and able to have careers in corrections are safe now.
Right. And it really does make sense for lawmakers, whoever is involved in these decisions, to visit the facilities. I have, as a journalist, been inside the old Fort Madison prison and also in the new one. They are night and day there, too. And it really, an on-site visit is really so important to see the conditions that we're talking about here. But if you could put one number, one story, one image, Trent, in front of every lawmaker hoping to change their mind, what would it be?
It would be this: the malfunction that happened last week with the 2 staff members, which were the canines, the malfunction with the vehicle. Just imagine those 2 canines having heat exhaustion of some sort that they both deceased. And so we had 2 staff members die at Anamosa State Penitentiary from a malfunction with a car situation. And so imagine it being, an inmate or a staff member dying inside of those walls. That's what I want to point out to lawmakers. Think about the staff members. We lost 2 of our canines. That is very painful, and it hurts that our staff members are, that were trained and everything else. We care about them. We should also care about the inmates that's in a place that don't get to open up their windows, don't get to just open their cell up and take a walk. Those 2 staff members that passed had a malfunction of some sort. And so that's what comes to my mind that lawmakers should think about, is that we need to care about human beings also. And we need to really think about what if this is my son? What if this is my daughter? What if this is my husband or my wife or my family member who make some sort of irrational decision or some type of mistake and end up in prison? Do I want them to be in an environment that is healthy for them, that they can learn from their mistakes, that they can come back out and pay their debts to society? Or do I want them to be in a situation where they're constantly irritable and fighting, or just not healthy at all? And so that's my thoughts on today's conversation, is that I believe that air conditioning is a priority at those 2 facilities.
Trent Keller, thank you very much for joining us. Trent is chair of the Iowa Board of Corrections. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank everyone.
It's River to River from IPR News. I'm Ben Kiefer. Erin Jordan, freelance journalist, still with us. Let's invite another guest into this conversation. We're talking about the lack of air conditioning at 2 of Iowa's oldest prisons, Anamosa and Mount Pleasant. Nearly $8 million in unspent prison farmland money. Some think should be going to fix this. Joining us for the rest of this conversation, the next 10 minutes or so, Todd Copley, president of Ask Me, Council 61. That's the union representing Iowa's correctional officers, the people working inside these buildings every day in this heat. Todd Copley, welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We've mentioned this a couple of times. Now is your time to dive into it. Heat leads directly to violence, hot weather, hot temperatures. That's not hard to understand. You track assaults on officers. What have you actually seen as temperatures climb?
On average, we realize that an officer is assaulted anywhere within the penal system in the state of Iowa about every 38 hours. That's on average in a 12-month period. That number, obviously there's ebb and flow to that, but it increases even more this time of year. Between May and November, there's assaults that happen so much more frequent than that. And weather is a determining factor. The hotter it gets, the more heated our tempers get, and unfortunately, our officers are caught in the middle of that.
And Erin Jordan, you're reporting finding studies showing prisons, maybe not just in Iowa, but studies showing prisons without air conditioning are just more violent.
Yeah, there was a study I was looking at that looked at prisons in Mississippi. So again, maybe a little bit farther south, but having average temperatures of 80 degrees over the course of the day saw 20% more violent outbursts. And Iowa, we definitely sometimes on some of those peak days reach that average 80 degree temperature between day and night temps. So, I mean, I think these are real numbers that have been looked at.
Mm-hmm. Todd, you've said corrections is understaffed by 29%, I think. Starting pay, we should remind everyone, is a little over $24 an hour, if I have that right. So this is a contributing factor. If you're looking at this job and you have to work in some months of the year in potentially sweltering, humid conditions, give us the picture there in terms of attracting enough people to be correctional officers.
It's a hard problem to solve. These prisons are overpopulated by 29% as well, on top of the fact that they're understaffed by 29%. The idea to be a correctional officer in the state of Iowa 20 years ago, it was an honor to put that uniform on. And it's it's harder and harder to get people to feel that way. People don't want to put their life on the line for $24.68 an hour. It's just, it gets harder and harder. These people go to work every single day in very, very dangerous conditions, not knowing that they're going to make it home that night.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't too long ago we were talking on this show about the tragedy of two of your members murdered at Anamosa in 2021. When you talk about this issue, does that have a bearing here? Are you having to make the case that this is a safety issue in that way, not just a comfort issue?
100%. This is a safety concern in our point of view, and the officers that we advocate for. 100%. It is a safety issue. It's just a matter of time. When is something bad going to happen again?
Erin Jordan, jump in here.
Todd, I don't know if you could address this, but I do wonder when you have these really hot periods. I know the DOC has said they try to make some adjustments, more fans, doors maybe open. I wonder if you've ever seen any of those kind of adjustments reduce safety.
I have not personally been to either Anamosa or Mount Pleasant during these situations. I talk frequently to local leadership at all of the facilities, so I know the hotter it gets, the department does do a fair amount of trying to make it as comfortable as possible. But that you have to draw a line when it comes to keeping them safe as well, keeping the officers safe, and keeping the public safe.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you the same question I had for Trent Keller, the chair of the Iowa Board of Corrections. Todd, what do you want to tell lawmakers to perhaps change their minds? And does this year feel different, also considering the revelations we have from Erin's reporting?
First and foremost, this year is different. There are huge changes that happened legislatively that are affecting not only the inmates populated in these facilities, but obviously directly it affects the officers as well. During the conversation in this recording, it was brought up public safety. I heard that numerous times. Mm-hmm. Our officers used to be classified as public safety, and in 2018, they were removed from public safety as far as classification due to the gutting of Chapter 20. Jason Schultz, who is the Senate District 6 here in Iowa from Schleswig, Iowa, has made statements more than once that correction officers in the state of Iowa will never be considered public safety because they work in a controlled environment. I've toured Fort Madison at Iowa State Penitentiary. Halfway through the tour, there was a fight, and I had to stop my tour. There is nothing controlled about the inside of a prison, and it's unfortunate. And when you throw in Iowa weather, it just exacerbates everything. Mm-hmm. There's issues. There's a lot of problems with the correction system. But I agree. Do these facilities need to be air conditioned? But yes, they do. But we've got bigger problems.
Yeah, we've got just a moment, and you're going right where I wanted to, Todd.
Okay.
We only have a minute left. What is your wish list for corrections employees? What is above AC?
Their safety. And there's the problem right there. They work in a very unsafe condition, and I don't believe our legislator or our governor believes that.
Okay. Erin Jordan, maybe some concluding remarks from you. Perhaps you had another question for Todd, but drive home what your reporting has said to you.
Yeah, I think that the important thing to remember is something that Trent said, is that these folks who are incarcerated have been found guilty and they're there behind bars for a reason. But, it behooves us as a state to take care of them better, because not only is it a more human thing to do, but it also provides a safer environment for them health-wise and a safer environment potentially for correctional officers.
Mm-hmm. Todd, 30 seconds to tell us what's at stake and sum it up.
We had murders in 2021. To say that will never happen again in this state, we're out of our minds. It's a dangerous situation. I agree 100%. Those inmates that we have in the prisons here in Iowa, they're wards of the state, and we have to take care of them. It's our duty. There are people that probably think they deserve to be there. They deserve to be treated like humans as well. But
Todd,
so do our officers.
Thank you for coming in, Todd. President of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 61, represents Iowa's correctional officers. We appreciate your time and coming in, Todd.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Very much appreciation for Erin Jordan, freelance journalist on the faculty at the University of Iowa as well. Thank you for this excellent reporting and coming in to share it, Erin.
Thanks, Ben.
Coming up after a short break, we'll talk about a new tool for communities to decide whether they should have a data center. That's when we return. It's River to River from IPR News. It's River to River from IPR News. I'm Ben Kiefer. Now, picture this. Your city council gets a knock on the door from a data center developer, promising jobs, tax revenue, and this presents you as a community with a stack of hard, unfamiliar questions. Questions about water use, power demand, noise, and so forth. And that's the situation more and more Iowa communities are finding themselves in. This week, the University of Iowa stepped into that gap with something new, the Iowa Data Center Decision Tool. It's not a yes or no answer machine. It won't tell a town whether to say yes to a project. Instead, it's sort of a roadmap for the conversation that should happen before anyone signs anything. My next guests helped develop it. Jen Terry is director of the Hubble Environmental Law Initiative at the University of Iowa College of Law. Amy Colbert is professor of management and entrepreneurship and faculty director of the Tippie College of Business's Social Impact Community. I spoke with them earlier this week. Jen, Amy, welcome to our studio. Nice to see you here.
Thank you, Ben.
Did I do a pretty good job of summarizing what you're tackling here, first of all, Jen?
I think you did a great job. You hit on a lot of the important points that we were thinking about, just the confusion and the speed with which some of these decisions are being made. So there was a gap that we found that we could help fill.
Okay, so what is actually new here? What does this tool let a city council member or a county supervisor do this week that couldn't have been done last week? Who wants to answer that one? Jen?
Yeah, sure. So the decision tool is a culmination of conversations with stakeholders from all across Iowa. So what we were hearing from them, that they were looking for credible resources, that they didn't even know what they didn't know, sort of. So what we did was work with Iowans who wrote this. It's written by Iowans for Iowans, sort of a technical or practical guide just to questions to think about.
So there was a lot of legwork to get out and talk to people, right, Amy?
That's exactly right. There was a lot of legwork because Jen and I are not experts on any of these matters deeply. But what a university is good for as a place to convene people who had some experience with data center construction and that had some lessons that might be useful to other communities who are faced with this decision.
Mm-hmm. A skeptical council member, and I'll just play that person right now, might ask, why build a standalone tool at all when we know these are amazing chatbots, ChatGPT, Claude, and then just ask one of those chatbots to walk you through the proposal and see what they come up with. Why not that, Jen?
I think that could lead to possibly some unpleasant surprises. I think that what the decision tool does is start conversations among community members and elected officials, just a conversation starter and almost a way to reduce risks down the line that you maybe weren't expecting when you got into the conversations.
Okay, conversation starter, how? In what form do you see it? Is it on a screen? Are you digesting this as a group, as an individual? Give me a better picture of what's going on here, Amy.
We made this a very flexible resource because we bet that it's going to have to be updated. Things are changing all the time. So this is essentially a PDF that you can print off and work with your city council or other community members to walk through the questions. What we want to do is help each community make the decision that's best for them. And they are the ones that know their own priorities. Asking ChatGPT, should we build a data center or not, will give you the average of what all communities might think. But we wanted this to be tailored specifically for smaller communities in Iowa. And that's why we asked real people who had dealt with these decisions to weigh in.
Mm-hmm. You have your own areas of many decades of expertise, but as you freely admitted, on this area you came as, I'll just say newbies, if you'll agree with that. But you gathered stakeholders from around the state, as you mentioned, back in February, I think, to build a blueprint for this. Jen, what surprised you most about those conversations? You went in with expectations, and then, as we all do when we are learning something, we're like, I didn't know that was going to be a point of controversy.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I recognized right away is just the confusion about there are different types of data centers. There's different types of communities around Iowa. So there was not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach to this. And so I was surprised by all the various variables that go into these decision-making processes around the state. The other thing is that there's a real hunger and a need and an urgent demand for more credible information. So the decision tool helps get the conversation started, and then we also have a listing of credible resources on the web pages as well.
Mm-hmm. So different types of data centers. I haven't talked about that much on this program. What's the spectrum of data centers? Because their impact must be then also different.
Very different. So the largest data centers, and the one that this tool really helps with, are called hyperscale data centers. And they can be multiple buildings, many, many acres of land. They use a lot of water and electricity. But honestly, there's a data center in a single building at the University of Iowa. It's a small room. And so data center is a broad term that simply means a place where this technology houses data. It is the hyperscale data centers that are newer and that are more concerned for Iowa communities.
Yeah, and Jen, as the director of the Hubble Environmental Law Initiative at the University of Iowa, they have different environmental impacts, how they use water, how much power they use, that sort of thing?
Yes, that's correct. It depends on the size and scope of the data center. It depends on what sort of cooling systems they're using, what sort of energy sources they're using. Again, lots of different variables, and hence the need to really take a look at what's happening in your own community and what your natural resources look like.
If you just joined us, we're talking about the new Iowa Data Center Decision Tool. Jen Terry with me and Amy Colbert. So let's talk about some real-world cases that we've heard in our news here on Iowa Public Radio. We have Altoona's Meta Campus, now the company's single largest data center footprint in the country. Can that be right? 5 million square feet, 10 buildings. That's one of the big ones.
That's absolutely a hyperscale data center.
Okay, there aren't many of these in the country right now?
There's becoming more and more all the time. And so Iowa is a place that data centers like to come because we have relatively flat land. The water and electric rates are fairly low. And so data centers are attracted here. But we're just seeing a spiraling increase in data centers across the country.
Mm-hmm. Norwalk approved a development agreement in March for this is huge, 282-acre site. Could become a $12 billion data center campus. It's drawn real pushback from the residents over the noise and the light. Is that the kind of situation that this tool is meant for communities to sort of evaluate and get ahead of?
Yes, I think that's an excellent example. And in fact, the city of Norwalk was one of our contributors to the tool. So they did a good job of popping up a web page to try and answer, some of the questions from their community. And one of the things that they pointed out was that one of the benefits that they see to the data center development is there were some benefits for the community in terms of some infrastructure upgrades and those sorts of things. So with each community, there's going to be cost-benefit analysis, and it's up to the community to decide which one outweighs the other.
Mm-hmm. What has happened since this tool I guess it's just been a few days since it went live. What's been going on there? What type of feedback or how much has it been used there, Amy?
We are thrilled to get feedback from lots of different organizations. It was featured in the Corridor Business Journal and Des Moines Business Record as well. And then we are going to go to the Iowa State Association of Counties on August 20th and do a presentation at their statewide meeting to help county officials understand better how to use the tool if they're faced with one of these decisions.
Mm-hmm. And so you, as you alluded to earlier, there's a version 2.0 in your near future because you're learning so much, right?
Yes, we've had interest from partners in the space and others who sort of want to do maybe a pilot project in a community and go out into a community that's starting to have these discussions, and perhaps they could use the tool as a conversation starter and start fleshing out the answers to some of these questions for a particular community. Also, a regional approach to more of a guidebook to answer, again, some of those questions on a regional basis.
Mm-hmm. Now, since this tool went live in the last few days, roughly a dozen Iowa communities have passed outright moratoriums on data centers. Salix, Norwalk have each seen large organized turnout at public meetings. Residents keep describing the feeling of being caught off guard and outmatched because all these experts and lawyers come marching into town knowing what they're up against, and all of a sudden people are caught off guard. I wonder what you think of these moratoriums. Is that a sign itself that this tool was needed or that this tool is working? How do you read those moratoriums?
I think the moratoriums show us that Iowa communities need more time to think about these big decisions. So essentially what a moratorium will do is to say, for this given period of time, we are not going to say yes to a data center so that we can review our ordinances, our laws, our codes, and make sure that those things which were written probably before hyperscale data centers were even around, are they up to the task of helping protect the community in the face of bringing in a data center product?
Well, and that's nice, I think, if all communities lock hands and do that and show solidarity. But we have communities, there's some degree of competitiveness here for economic benefit, right? So what if the developer says, all right, you have your little think about this and use the tool, but no, in the meantime, we may be going to the town down the road.
I think that's possible, and perhaps to make a good decision means that it's going to take a little longer, and you might miss one of those opportunities. We have heard from communities that have worked with the data centers, though, that the data centers themselves, the companies that are building them, want the communities to be supportive. They don't want the negative publicity or press. And so we think that communities have more negotiating power than they might think that they do as they work to develop an agreement that's good for both parties.
Oh, I see. So you're saying in the short term, a short-term developer might say, let's get this done. Let's get these papers signed and an agreement made. A developer, a long-term thinker might say, wait a minute, if we have this community invested in it after being made aware of what's going on, we'll have fewer problems down the road. Is that what you're thinking?
I think that's probably accurate. And again, just tapping the brakes for the moratorium gives the community an opportunity to have those conversations and determine a pathway forward that has, features an agreement that has transparency and has all of the inclusions in it for things that might improve the community, whether it's infrastructure, maybe it's, infrastructure management like roads, road improvements and those sorts of things. They just want to be sure that things like noise that you mentioned earlier, that they have ordinances in place that would deal with lighting and noise and maybe the construction phase of the project. So, yeah, I think that they will have the opportunity to come up with better agreements that are better for win-win if they have the time to just, talk about these issues.
Does every community who needs to know about this tool potentially know about it now? Or could someone be listening in a community right now who says, never heard of it, I need to find out more?
Absolutely. We launched on Monday of this week. And so we're thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with you so that more people will find out about it. But we're using lots of different mechanisms to get the word out. And the tool is available on the Hubble Environmental Law Initiative's website so that if a community finds out about it, they've got full access to all of the resources.
Amy, to you on this as the faculty director of the Social Impact Community, where does this go from here? Is this a model for how TIPI, the College of Business, plugs into other community-facing decisions here? Now, of course, data centers is a big thing, but communities can be caught off guard by all kinds of things, right?
Absolutely. And we like to think that businesses are a part of the system that can help support communities, not part of the system that may harm them. And so as we're teaching the future leaders at the TIPI College of Business, we're helping them understand systems thinking. How do you understand the impact of a business decision, not just on the bottom line, but also on the community, the environment, and society as a whole?
When did the Iowa Data Center Decision Tool get launched as a seed? The idea, was that a year, two, longer? When was that, approximately?
No, it was actually this past February when we...
February of 2026?
That's true.
Wow, you moved on this.
We did move on that, thanks to our partners at TIPI and our partners on the project. So we gathered a group together in February and had a listening session with university experts as well as the stakeholders from across the state. And then we invited back a smaller subset of folks to help us with the decision tool. And so that all came together since February.
Mm-hmm. Pardon me for saying this, but academia is not known for being in that race mode here. Does it feel different to you too?
It does, absolutely. I have to give Jen some credit because she's worked in other industries as well. But I think we were most swayed by the people who said, we need this now.
I see.
We have to make these decisions now. It's not perfect. And that's what we had to trade off for the speed. But we think that it will help communities ask better questions. And we'll update it as we learn more.
In the final minute or two, let's look toward the future. Let's say if every Iowa community used this tool from day one, what does the state data center map look like in 5 years? More projects, fewer projects, better negotiated projects? What is your hope here?
My hope would be a safe and responsible data center development plan for Iowa. So that would include using our water resources wisely where those are located and using our energy resources wisely and considering the benefit of our natural resources and Iowans. So there should be a balance going forward, and we are having these open discussions and making good choices in that way.
Mm-hmm. Amy, what about you? What do you hope for in 5 or so years?
I would hope that all of the stakeholders feel represented in the process, that community members, as well as the city council, the people who are elected officials, are all at least considering the broad impacts that these data centers have on so many parts of life for Iowans.
Mm-hmm. Is this something that can be exported out of state? Is this happening in other states already, this sort of thing?
The decision tool? Or...
Exactly.
Yes, there's other states and organizations that have come up with similar decision tools or toolkits. Nothing in Iowa that we're aware of, and nothing in just exactly like this one. So we're very excited about this, and it's also a wonderful collaboration with our law students as well. They're going to be the next generation of attorneys who are protecting the environment and natural resources, and they're enjoying this process as well.
Right. We barely touched on that. A wonderful teaching tool for students the law school, at the business school as well. Well, maybe we'll touch back on this to see how it develops. It's quickly developing. Thank you very much. Jen Terry of the University of Iowa College of Law, Amy Colbert of the University of Iowa College of Business. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Today's program produced by Samantha McIntosh. I'm Ben Kiefer. Thanks for joining us.